It is the thousand-eyed Angel of Death final boss from the days of Medarot 8. It is AZL00 Salvation, with the kit of Canceller, double ghost shot, float legs, and the leg ability of Clairvoyance, which adds radar sight effect to self when charging metaphors. Now, as the final boss of Medarot 8, Salvation is most certainly a very imposing and immensely powerful model right from start, as graced by the appearance and the stats that you see here, just based on its kit alone. But it is a rather strange kit, given that it is also triple heavy, immensely powerful, but no real method of actually being able to charge that momentum going forward without spending a few turns actually being able to do it. Canceller on the head part is an ailment-based skill that upon attacking the target, whatever part it targets and damages will be rendered inoperative and unusable by that particular target. If it attacks the legs, I believe it just simply lands a no defend ailment on them instead. Of course, because this is an ailment, it means it can be nullified or removed by the use of stat cleanse or something of the like, but this can be a very useful method that, when paired with the right metal nature in particular, can be very good at buying yourself some time by negating the use of certain skills based on what Salvation is targeting when attacking their enemy. Ghost Shot on both arms are conventional shooting skills that have immensely high base damage, as you see, but also a lot of very nice damage bonuses and modifiers adding on top of that. In particular, the first modifier is that it grants a damage bonus modifier relative to the amount of Metaforce charge in his gauge. This means that the higher of a charge or closer to 100% charge you get, the higher of a damage bonus and final total you'll get when actually dealing and shooting at the target. In addition, Ghost Shot also packs passive defense ignore on top of that, which means that no matter if the enemy tries to block it or divert damage or keep it as low as possible, the resist stats on the legs will be rendered null and void when attacking the target, which means they'll be taking the full brunt of the blow no matter which way they put on it, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Float legs as well means that Salvation will have relatively good coverage across all terrains at A rank across the board, and S rank on Cyber, of course. But the first thing I do want to point out in particular with Salvation is the fact that if you look at its stats across the board, of course with base power at almost 1900 and 2000 with both arms, and just shy of 1100 there with Canceller on the head, the stats on the legs in particular are the really big point I want to highlight on. And it's the fact that even though Salvation is considered a boss type bot, aside from the really nice resist stats it has on there, it's actually not as absurdly broken or overpowered as other models might be, such as, say, Artemis or Spinag or Metal Eater, or even someone else of the like that also is a boss type that's not float-legged. Salvation in particular is much better rounded overall, which is actually a very nice change of pace when it comes to models being released and trying to keep up with a power creep or a competitive meta. Now, that's not saying that there is a meta that needs to be kept up with, but it is a nice change of pace is what I'm saying. But across the board too, Salvation is packing some pretty modest stats across the board as well. Head HP of about 5900, arms about 3100 each, and the legs at 5150 means that he's packing a pretty solid base HP pool across the board, which is nice. Base power, like I said, at 1900 and almost 2k means he's already before any modifier is going to be immensely powerful right from square one, and only serves to get stronger once he starts getting a Metaforce charge going. Leg stats as well, like I said, are pretty modest and is a nice change of pace. With a mobility at 788, it's very nice in that nice upper tier where float legs tend to sit when they are not an absurdly broken boss type, of course, like I mentioned. An evade of 893 also is pretty nice, and melee resist of 1257 and shoot resist of 1313 are very nice as well, as it means he will have some pretty solid damage reduction off the, right from square one before any modifiers do come into play. Now, of course, it is also worth mentioning that because he is a float-legged, he will be getting an extra 10% to all leg stats the moment he hits the field. So even though his stats might be just a little bit better than what you see here, you really won't see too much of a difference in performance overall. That being said though, as a pure set scorer, I still do have to rate Salvation a pretty solid 5.5 out of 10, primarily for the fact that even though Canceller and Ghost Shot can be very dangerous in their own right, as a pure set, Salvation doesn't really make use of the kit to its fullest advantage. And Clairvoyance is a nice ability to have, as Radar Sight just grants a success bonus and removes any conceal or stealth effects on the enemy's side. It really doesn't synergize too well with itself, aside from just being an extra utility more than anything else. Plus, because Ghost Shot requires you to basically have that Metaforce charge at square one to really start laying on the pain, the fact that Salvation does not have any kind of Metaforce sustain in its kit means that it's already kind of fighting on a disadvantage despite having very clear base power advantage from the moment the fight begins. As mixed parts though, I have to rate him much higher at a 7 out of 10. Given that even though the legs, like I said, are modest in stats, they're not certainly anything broken or absurdly busted, but they are still some very good legs to make use of all the same regardless. Ghost Shot and Cancer are honestly much better used on their own as separate parts more than they are as a pure set, primarily because you can match things up a whole lot better and capitalize on it, such as say Full Charge or Shoot Full Charge, making use of Ghost Shot, or Canceller on your mixed range or your mixed ailment fighters to make use of. One other thing to note as well on Salvation is that it is also triple heavy, which means that anyone that is using a gravity attribute attack such as Break, Break Hammer, Break Rush, or Press will be absolutely laying the pain on this Thousand-Eyed Angel of Death sooner than he actually gets to administer the rites of death to anyone else on the field.